Hi, my name's Shawn Shaler. That's my friend Chris Ford, aka the Objective Geek of YouTube and Twitter fame. That was I thought you were pointing at me, and then you pointed to the other side, and it
I was.
made me feel less important when you pointed to nothing. And
I wonder, can we do the fusion thing and line it up?
bring
Me?
your top hand. Oh yeah, that's pretty close right there. That ain't bad.
Okay. And then boom, we're a mixed person on, on something.
Ever since Toriyama died, I've been getting like because I watch him and I feed the algorithm, but I get lots of Dragon Ball. It'll be like crazy Dragon Ball facts you didn't know, and just like the most mundane. Like, yeah, I saw that on the screen. Like it's part of the
Did,
episode.
did you know? I think he married the creator of Sailor Moon, right?
I did not know that. I believe that.
Oh well, I'm pretty sure
You should be.
he at least dated or married the other creator of Sailor Moon.
I
I am confident in that.
I believe that entirely.
Well,
And
looking it up right now.
but Chris, I've been thinking since Con about next year's costume, and
Oh, okay.
the only thing is it was done so much by people who did it better. But I love that people were dressed up as Toph, but from the Ember Island players, like the buff guys. There's two or three of them. I mean, one was buff, the other two were just big, but that were dressed up as Ember Island players. I was like, that's just a fun costume. But it's done a lot, and I don't want to take my inspiration from other people's originality. I'll keep thinking. I got time. Chris,
Wait.
uh, I noticed. We didn't talk about. I noticed. I'm going to call it a light piece of news. Did you see a light piece of news today or yesterday?
I'm sorry. I think I had the wrong person. The creator of Yu Yu Hakusho
Oh,
and
okay.
the creator of Sailor Moon either dated or married.
You
My
know,
bad, Akira Toriyama.
I was thinking that Akira Toriyama was not married and that he was kind of a crazy workaholic. But I could be. I don't know if that's accurate either.
Every
Mangaka,
manga artist, mangaka,
mangaka. I don't know how to say it. I'm
works
guessing.
works hourlessly throughout their life.
Yeah. I mean, programmers are the same way. Like, in the scope that we discuss, we're usually talking about artists, but they're video game programmers. Over here we have like entire companies that are working their people to death. Over there, it's just individual programmers voluntarily working themselves to death, which is also not great. But anyway, Chris, I saw. I'm going to call it a light piece of news. Did you see it? Small bit of
I
news
don't think
today.
I did.
It was just like article teases important season 2 person or whatever, and just some article teasing Toph.
Oh,
And
go ahead.
I didn't read any farther than that because it was kind of a garbage headline. But people, listen, all it meant to me is that people out there are talking, and I think that's good. I think that's a win. There's engaged, continued interest, and I didn't. How rude of me! I didn't even ask you how you are. How are you? What have you been doing?
You know what? My week's been fine. Continue to work on drawing. Let's see if I get better or not. We'll see. I did this week, Avatar related. I took some Tai Chi class. I took one
No
Tai Chi
kidding.
class.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's my job. Sometimes just brings in random people for like exercise and stuff. And like I was just on like every company has their own little internet web thing.
Sure.
And it was like sign up for a Tai Chi class. It's like, oh, I want to do that. Sign up for a Tai Chi class because Tai Chi, as people probably Avatar fans know, is the martial arts that inspire the waterbenders movements and stuff. And so I went to work on a Tuesday. Yep, on a Tuesday. I typically don't go into work on Tuesday. I work from home 3 days out of the week. But I went into. I didn't go. I didn't work at. I did not work in the office on Tuesday. But for this class, I went into the office wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt so I can go down to the gym and take this class, which felt weird just walking into your office with sweatpants
Yeah,
and a
that'll
t-shirt on.
never feel natural.
Yeah, it was this white guy. He was there with his students, and I say students, they're like probably 50-year-old white people also. Uh, but the white guy was the master, and he went over kind of a brief history of Tai Chi and stuff. And then he took us through some movements, probably about 20 minutes or so. But it was cool though. Like I feel it was cool. Maybe because I feel it's cool because I love like we went through this a lot of like he was naming forms. He was like, "All right, snake takes sip of water," and then like do a ball of water and stuff, and we were
And you're like,
going
water whip.
ocean. Yeah, really, I was like Demon Slayer, because like Demon Slayer, they'll be like fourth form, and they'll say it like fourth form, gushing water or something. He'll be like tiger form, tiger and stuff. We did do like there's a move that Aang does in the finale of Avatar: Last Airbender, where he goes in the Avatar state, where the first time he masters the Avatar state, and he takes out all the fire with like the water from the ocean, and like we did that move, and it felt like I was trying to mimic the teacher as much as possible, but it like felt you that's the closest I ever felt to a waterbender.
That's
But it was
awesome.
cool.
And I think we talked about this in our if Avatar were an anime episode. One of the things I like about Avatar is that they don't scream the names of their moves as they perform them like this.
I could take it or leave it, but
That's
I'm
one of those
fine
things
either
where it's
way.
like, I've never once thrown a punch and be like, face punch,
Mhm.
It's just not a
Maybe
great.
so think of it this way, Sean. Maybe you'll like to think of it this way. Lots of people complain about moves and stuff being named out, but think of it in a way of a a what do you call that? Like a chant in magic.
A
Like when in Harry
mantra.
Potter,
Yeah.
well, like in Harry Potter, when they say "Wingardium Leviosa," it's the same thing. Like you gotta say the move to channel that energy of the move into the move. Think of it in that concept.
That's a great comp. And I always when it exists in shows that I watch, I've like over the years just decided to creatively interpret it as like that's like them saying it like in their heads or like strategically plotting this thing that they're gonna do. Like we're
Mm,
just getting verbalized because we can't read their minds. What's going through
true.
their mind to somebody? That's how I've interpreted it over the years. But I always appreciate that, like in the live action, for example, they go out of their way to talk about Katara slinging the ice discs, and it's really cool. It's like it has a name, but not like a formal
Mm.
name. It's not like ice disc fling. It's like, oh, the way you flung the ice disc. It's like, no, that's how I would have described it to her, and that feels good. Oh, a little thing. Little
I
thing.
do. It's dumb. It's admittedly a dumb thing in most anime.
Eh,
I think Demon Slayer does it well because they legitimately have different forms that mean different things
and
that do different things.
it is an
But like
incantation, truly, in Demon Slayer.
yes, yeah. And My Hero, it's just like Tetsu Smash.
That
Like
yeah.
it's not like I don't know the difference between a Tetsu Smash and a Detroit Smash.
Okay,
Um,
but in My Hero, those in particular, that's like part of the that is like part of the charm of my like the
it is
extra camp
that,
of it, and that is what
and
would
even they,
happen
yeah,
if
and even they say in the. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
I just like if everybody in the world like Chris, if you and I woke up tomorrow and we like had bona fide superpowers and we were like putting on costumes and training, we'd probably name our moves even if it was jokingly to
That's
ourselves.
true. Yeah, that's true.
What do you call that? I call it the
Um,
Texas Smash.
they do say in My Hero, like in their trainings and stuff, they're like, oh, you got to come up with a special move and a special name for it. Like it's important because when citizens see you perform this move, it reassures them of what's going to happen next, and like it's just a kind of a reassurance thing, and also it helps with branding and stuff because they are heroes who needs to get paid.
Yeah.
But anyway,
It's an opposite Batman where Batman has to have this persona that exists beyond what a physical human can. There's is like the flip side of that is like there's a lot of us out there. I got to distinguish myself.
true. Yeah.
Gotta get that bread.
If only we lived in a world with superpower. There would be, a 5-year period there where it's just chaos,
Mhm.
and then things would die down and people have powers, and it'll be cool.
And I like to think, not to get too here, like, but from chaos comes order a little bit. At least I'm sort of is that Nietzsche? I don't know my philosophers that well, and also can't pronounce philosopher very well. But yeah, it would work itself out, I think, and hopefully people would still be alive to sort it out.
Yeah. Oh dang! I just had a thought. What was it? Whatever. Doesn't
About
matter.
what superpowers would wake up, and you know what, Chris?
Yeah.
Let's add random superpowers into our randomizer, and we'll just draw it out one day. It'll be like, Chris, this is your superpower. You wake up with tomorrow.
Okay.
What do you do? Just throw a bunch of random ones in there.
Oh, I remember what I was thinking of. I have a stupid fear that sometimes I'm standing next to someone and they have telepathy. Like it's like they know what I'm. Because I'll think the most random thing. And I'll be like, "What if this person could tell what I was thinking just now?" And now this person knows. Now this person feels me thinking, "What if they feel something?" But they can't react to it because they've been trained their whole lives not to react to what other people think. But now we're having this anyway.
They're watching
I don't have
you,
a
and
real
you can't
fear.
converse back with them. You have to assume that they are telepathic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Or, what if they're just like really good at reading body language and stuff, so they don't know what you're thinking, but they know that you're thinking about them. thinking
Yeah.
You're thinking about them thinking about you. Then it's pretty awkward at that point. Chris, my computer had like a panic attack earlier today, and then that led me to like have a panic attack too, because I live on this computer. All of our media that we do, like we very rarely turn on a regular TV. Even like I have all the video games or whatever, and I play a lot of Switch. But if I'm not playing the Switch, I'm playing PC games. Recording everything lives here, and today, just like it started up, and I could see it start up. I could see the boot screen, and then nothing after that. Like the TVs were on, but it wouldn't display anything. And I booted it up like 4 or 5 times, and that was terrifying. Thankfully, on Windows, well, I assume on Macs too. Thankfully, it does have a, what do you call it? Like a recent state that you can boot back from. So it was just like 2 days ago, but it was like 30 minutes of pure, I lost everything on recording day panic. I recorded the
You
audio.
seem panic when you messaged me.
Oh,
I
I
was like,
was panicked, man. I was like sweating bullets, like everything. So, and I have a backup too, but and I back it up to hard drives that theoretically I could literally plug in and just go with. But I only back it up once every couple months, and I was very sad because I had recorded and edited some Switch. I
oh
want to make a
yeah.
Switch video, and I recorded the audio, which is like my least favorite part. And so I was afraid I lost that. I didn't. But long story short, I spent like 30 minutes just sweating. Just like, it's not hot at all. It's the basement. It's cold as hell down here. Sweating bullets. But I survived, and my week otherwise was good. And
Oh, good.
I'm excited to talk about, Chris, we haven't rated anything in a very long time. We've not rated anything in a very long time. So just to refresh your memories, Chris is going to give us a summary. I don't think it can be as in-depth as our summaries of like when we do the animated show, because these episodes are anywhere from like 45 minutes to an hour 10. So let's call it a light summary. There will be spoilers. If you have not watched the show yet, we're not going to, I mean, probably not like intentionally spoil, but we're talking about it, and we're not going to hinder ourselves. So there's spoilers, and Chris will summarize it, and then we're going to give our 3 ratings, which is audio visual, so anything that you see or hear, and then the narrative, story and setting, and then memorable or X factor or whatever you want to call it. We call it memorable in my head. It's like the everything else, whatever you want to do with it. And we each weight those differently, and then we'll average them together, and it'll be great.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely keeping the same rating parameters as before, just to keep it consistent. Although when I used to actually do my YouTube channel and reviews and stuff, I had a very oh my god, I had a frog in my throat, and now I'm talking like I don't know.
Chris is
Um,
going through
I had a,
puberty. He apologizes.
I
He's
know,
his little voice scratching.
I had a rating system where I broke it down in like 6 different ways. So it's interesting to it. It's hard to think of this show compared to Avatar because I it's not that there's not acting going on in the cartoon. The voice actors are actors, but it's just easier to for me to kind of think about the acting in live action and kind of rate it.
Yeah.
But even within that audio visual, when I was thinking about audio visual, I was really thinking of like the acting, the also the visual effects and fight choreography, things like that.
Hmm?
Wow, if I was doing like my regular views, I would split that up in between acting and action.
Hmm?
Um, so anyway,
Well, what I
so
liked about your movie reviews in particular is you had different weights for different genres, and I think that's
yeah,
good. Well, not good. I think that's great, and that's something that we didn't really like discuss here. But we are essentially talking about a TV show that's in slightly different genre. Like we're not talking about an animated series that was intended for what is it Y7A, right? Or YS7, I mean. We're talking about
myself.
a young adults and above action show for action drama, maybe for lack of a better term. Like it's a different genre, and yet we're applying the same weights. And so it's like, that's not ideal, but I don't know.
I think it's good to be
It's
consistent,
it,
just in case
yeah,
we ever want to look back on it and be like, all right, how do we compare them? Like maybe there's certain episodes that are better than our waiting. I kind of doubt it, but
yeah.
I don't know.
I think our categories are generic enough that it's a fine 1-to-1. I'll take this opportunity to remind everybody that it is a 10-point scale. And at least in my mind, and Chris might have a different interpretation of this, at least in my mind, it's a 10-point scale that, like, I think too many people think like they're having a paper graded. Like a 5 out of 10 is a failure and a 6.1 is just scraping by or whatever, like you're getting school grades or something. And that does not reflect my approach personally. The 5 to 6, that's like the average, that's the middle, that's the median, and that's, I don't know, at least that's my approach to it. And so I don't know, that's my, like, what do you call it, foreshadowing. That's my foreshadowing that I would hope people would keep in mind.
I mean, Shawn hated it, guys.
That's literally the opposite of what it means. Don't feed the fire, Chris. Don't feed the fire. Yeah, but hey, let's get to it. I'm really excited. We haven't done this in ages. Would you care to offer us a light summary of episode 1, which is
Like
called Aang? Very creative.
this called Aang. Random side note: during the Tai Chi lesson, we were like, I don't know, doing somewhat pressure points, and he was like, "All right, put your hands like this and do this," and like doing any type of hand movements reminds me of Naruto. And like, when I was in there, I wanted to be like summoning jutsu, and, and Naruto. Man, I thought it would be so hilarious. But I just because sometimes I walk around the house and I just go like, like just Naruto hand symbols,
Your
and so
daughter
it was
probably
just
thinks it's hilarious, and the other kids are like,
yeah.
what?
Man, what are you doing? Anyway, okay. I'm curious how this is gonna go because it's our first time reviewing this. Opens up with flashback, 100 years before. I was kind of floored on this flashback. Opens up with an Earth with a soldier running away from the Fire Nation soldiers. Turns out it's an Earth-bending soldier, and he sends off some plans to the Earth Kingdom so that they can know that the Fire Nation is going to be attacking the Earth Kingdom here soon. And then he meets up with the Fire Lord, who is Fire Lord Sozin. The Fire Lord Sozin is like, haha, tricked you. You fell into my plan, and now
That's how he sounded
now
when he said it.
that's how he sounded. Was not cool or menacing at all. It was just, ha
Ah, got you.
um, yeah, it was a plan all along to so everyone's attention will be on the Earth Kingdom while they can attack the air nomads. So that's how that part opens up. You want me to just keep going through my whole little summary here? No
Yeah, I
problem.
think so.
Okay. All right. And then we get to the flashback of Aang with the air nomads during that time, which was cool to see him and Gyatso really have that bonding moment, and Gyatso reveals to Aang that he's the Avatar. Which there's a scene in here that is this has to be taken from Man of Steel. There's a scene in Man of Steel where Pa Kent takes Clark Kent while he's a little boy, and he's like, why am I like this? He's like, I'm a freak. Like, I can see through walls, and sometimes when I stare at people, I see their freaking skeleton and stuff, and I have fire coming out of my eyeballs. And Jonathan Kent takes him to the barn, shows him the spaceship, and he tells him like, you're not from here, like you're an alien. And then um, Clark Kent is like, can I just keep pretending to be your son? Clark Kent's like, you are my son. Like, so
And
it's that same moment
yeah,
in,
you are my friend.
in the
And
show.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like, can I just keep pretending to be your friend? And Gats was like, you are my friend. Great moment. I'm 100% confident they were at least subconsciously inspired by that moment
it's
in Man of Steel.
it's pretty on the nose.
Yeah, I think so. Um, but Aang doesn't want that responsibility, and he's like, you know what? I need to clear my head. I'm gonna go out for a walk. Which this is, we'll probably get to this. But he goes off and he goes for a little walkie walk with on Appa just to clear his mind. Nothing, nothing too
Yeah,
shattering.
just
No,
needs to take a breath to himself.
yeah, just take yeah. And then bad time to go out for a walk. It's like then the Fire Nation attacks. It's like when Troy goes out for the pizza in Community, and he comes
Yes.
back and everything is on fire. But it's actually very similar because like Troy, that episode's so freaking good of Community.
It's the
Uh,
the six-sided die.
Remedial,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's such an interesting episode because it shows like what each member means to the group, and when you take them away, how does that affect the group? Like when Troy leaves, that's the worst timeline because Troy is the heart of the group. Granted, we actually left from the show, but sure the show wasn't as good, but but probably because they grew at that point, like they grown, and so they weren't as dependent on each other's different personality traits that bonded them together and made them better human beings. Um, but anyway, great episode of Community.
Mhm.
Probably my favorite.
It's
I
it's
don't
top
know.
5 for me for sure. Without thinking about it, it's top 5.
It's hard to think what my favorite Community
You
episodes
know,
are.
we've talked about this before, but weirdly, they almost all the great ones come from the early seasons, right? But there's the one where
Yeah.
Jason Mantzoukas directs the play with what's his name Chang and Annie, and Annie thinks
Yeah.
that's like number 3 or 4 for me. That episode's tremendous, but
You think the Karate Kid is about him? The Karate Kid is about Mr. Miyagi, a Vietnam War vet, came back from America, trying to make something of himself. It's about him.
it's an amazing. It's the baby birds episode too, and then they all
Mm.
wear the cat masks at the end to scare the baby birds away. It's so dumb, and I love it. It's an amazing episode, but different topic for a different day.
Jason Mantzoukas, freaking love that guy. Anyway, okay, so back to Aang. Went for a walk on Appa, and didn't come back. Fire Nation attacked. Literally, we get to see it. Never seen it before.
Also, Aang's
Um,
drunk ass just flying into a storm. Like, did you even look at the clouds, man? What are you doing?
I mean, in the defense of this adaptation, the same thing probably happened before. And also, there's a sense of of destiny. Like these things happen for a reason. And I feel like even the original show kind of did some of those things. Like even if we're talking about specifically about the clouds, like there was a point where it was like clear skies in the episode The Storm, because the the fisherman guy's the fisherman's wife is like, I'm not going with you. Like I sense in my bones that there's a storm coming. He's like, a storm? It's clear clouds. And then even Iroh could sense like a storm was coming. And
It's
then the
not.
storm came out of nowhere. So
It's
it's
not.
just I don't know.
It's not a huge difference. I would say it ever so slightly to me plays into that idea that it makes more sense that Aang running away in like an angsty that
Yeah,
it would
yeah.
matter less than like Aang going for a walk.
I think
It's a really minor detail, though. I'm not trying to get hung up
yeah.
on that.
No, Sean, you're nitpicking here. Anyway. So financial tax.
We're nitpicking, says
Um
co-host of a show dedicated to a single show.
Fire Nation attacks. Also, I'm gonna nitpick here because
Please.
so I recently watched this episode. Not it's nitpicks. Anyway,
Yeah.
actually, this might not be as much of a nitpick because Sozin's Comet powers the Firebenders, and this is probably my fifth time watching the show. It's been a couple of months since I've watched it again, but anyway, on this recent rewatch, I was thinking to myself, man, these Firebenders really aren't that powerful. Like they don't. They just seem kind of like normal. Like they seem like their fire bending is maybe 2 times stronger than normal.
Mm-hmm.
While like Sozin's comment was like, "This is gonna make us 10 times stronger." And sure, Sozin says it when he fights Gyatso, and he's like, "Because of the power of the comet, like you would have stunned me the other
On
day,
another
but because of the
night.
power of the
Yeah.
comet, another night, because of the power of the comet, like we're gonna kill you all." But Sozin seemed like slightly more powerful, but this even the Fire Nation soldiers in the finale of Avatar during Sozin's Comet, like unnamed Firebender number 10, like they were firebending. It was freaking crazy. Like this one just seemed like, all right, we got a little boost. Let's go kill all the air nomads.
plus
Which,
plus two to Dex rolls, absolutely.
yeah, and so that I
Chris,
don't know if it's a nitpick, but it does. In retrospect, maybe it's not that bad because it took on my fifth rewatch to actually think about it. They're like, they don't seem like it doesn't seem like Sozin's Comet is going to be that big of a deal.
I think that falls into it's more than nitpick. It's not terribly serious, but like Sozin's Comet's supposed to be a big deal. Chris, I had a perverted thought, and that's that like, you never see airbenders together, and like where do airbender babies come from? It's like, what if they have this big festival every year where they all get hammered and sleep together? You wake up, you can't remember who you slept with, but you're pregnant, and now you don't know who the dad is. You gotta, like.
That's what the Great Comet Festival is for. Well, that only comes around.
This is a big drunken orgy so they can make more airbenders.
Yatso's like, hey, listen, go. You're
You
the
need to
Avatar.
get out
Go
of here. Okay, but like,
I have a weird.
when
Never, I'm
else
not
would you meet women effectively from other places? I don't know, it's a festival. Also, well, yeah.
If I had to, I don't.
I'm not saying it's a literal
really-
orgy,
I
but
haven't
like
really-
if a few of them got hammered and slept together on the festival,
Well, okay. Well, the for this specific festival only happens once every 100 years.
but they gotta
but-
find other they gotta find other parties sometimes, Hey, it's Bill's birthday. Let's get all the airbenders together.
They weren't nomads. They traveled around. They from reading the Yang Chen novels. Not that anything promiscuous happened there, but it seemed like there was constant traveling.
Yeah. There would have
there
to.
were nomads.
See, that makes them sound like sailors. But anyway, I just thought, it's like, hey, What could be such a good excuse that they all abandon all of their homes? I know. Anyway, no, I don't think there's a
Yeah.
nitpick. I think there's something. I think there's depth to that.
Okay. Not to nitpick the cover out of the show, but I want reasonable. I mean, any type of nitpick is fine as long as you don't make a mountain out of molehill for nitpicks. I think it's perfectly fine to point out like, oh, that's a little weird. But when it becomes like the main talking point, especially for a lot of people, it's like you're making these
Yeah,
nits way too picked,
you
and
picking
they
too
just need to
fine
be.
in it. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
when you're talking about a really good show, we're trying to critique the animated series or whatever. So yeah, there's only so many bad things to bring up, but yeah, fine
Yeah.
balance. That's Avatar like.
Anyway, they all died. They were all killed. By
I
which
hate
was
to
a
nitpick.
freaking
Anyway,
great.
they all died.
Uh,
Your tone.
that's
Anyway,
not
they
just
all
all.
died.
So we got that flashback.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then it goes to the current time. Sokka and Katara are at their Wolf Cove village, and they go fishing. It's interesting. You see a little. You see the relationship dynamic here and how it's a little different than before. There's less combativeness between the two. There's still some brotherly, sisterly banter between the two. And I thought it was fun. Then they find Aang, and then Aang just knocked out, sleeping, and then they put him in his worst nightmare, which is just surrounded by animal pelts, and and
Literally
as
wrapped up
Aang,
in them. Absolutely.
yeah,
Is a death
like
shroud
that.
of pelts.
Yeah. Um, then Aang comes to Grand says the intro, which okay, a lot of people have crapped on Grand talking about because Aang is like, oh, I got to get back home. This, the Comet Festival just ended, and they're like, that was 100 years ago. That was the last one. And Grand says the opening, and a lot of people think this is bad acting, but it's not. She's purposely saying the intro almost like a tale or story that's been passed down to her. Like she is narrating the story. She's not. That's not bad acting. Like to me, she's clearly like telling the story in the way that she's been told it year after year. Like she's telling it in a very thematic kind of sense, almost over the top kind of sense.
I I don't know that I it's not my favorite delivery. I wouldn't say it's bad acting. It's not my favorite way to deliver the narrative, I guess, but
And I think that's a fine a fine critique of it.
yeah.
I just think people have been like, oh gosh, it's acting.
And no,
It's terrible. I like
I
it.
mean, it's a grandma telling a story like how you want her to tell
Yeah.
it. What do you-
And then we see Zuko and stuff, and Zuko. Pretty much the rest of this happens a lot like the show. Zuko sees the light, and he goes and attacks the village. Saga has a couple different moments here where where he shows he's where he shows that
rough
he's
rough edges,
he's a little
Sokka.
rough and stuff, and doesn't trust Aang. Oh, there's a moment where I'm like, this moment that I hated, and I brought it up before, which I don't know if we'll ever actually uh, publish our live action reaction to the first last episode. Maybe one day I'll get to it if I'm feeling bored
That was
to
backup
edit.
material. That was backup material.
Yeah. Well, um. There's Sokka is mad at Aang for lying to him, and I thought this was like stupidly done. Could have been easily better rewritten because Aang doesn't tell him that he's the Avatar, which is fine. But like Aang was never, no one ever asked him was the Avatar. Like in that meeting where Gran was telling the story, Gran should have been like, "Are you the Avatar?" And then he should have been like, "No, I'm not the Avatar." Like,
We
because then
we
that would have been
felt
a,
like
a very
we felt like a piece had been like cut out or something because it really
Yeah,
felt like either Grand should have been like, he's not just an air nomad, he's, and then like she's
yeah,
gonna say the Avatar, and then she does it, and it feels off. Like she should have said it, and he could have evaded, or she could have asked him, or but we felt like something was missing or had been swapped out, I guess,
yeah.
and I stand by
Um,
that.
yeah, yeah, and he even says it. I think in the original show, they asked him like, was he the Avatar? And he says like, no, but I know people who knew him. I'm pretty sure that was in episode one. I'm pretty sure my memory's not betraying me there. But anyway, so that is above a. I probably need some type of rating system of of critiques. Like, is this a nitpick? Is this
Well,
a
you know how we
valid?
talk about like plot hole and plot convenience and totally fine,
Yeah,
right? It's
there's
like somewhere in there. There's like nitpick, actual critique, and less than
and
nitpick, something like that.
yeah.
What's less than a nitpick? Like that's a point. Just that, it's just a thing.
Yep. So Zuko gets there, and him and Sokka have a little fight, and then Aang intervenes. That's a fight, and then Aang is like, "All right, I'll go with you. You don't hurt these people." And Zuko's like, "That's cool. Come with me." And then this is like one of the dumbest lines I think that I think it just doesn't make sense. It's a very dumb line. It might be a nitpick because it's only one line, but Aang is like talking to Sokka is like, "No one's ever stood up for me. I think you're the bravest person I know." It was one
It's
to me. It was one of
weirdly
the dumbest.
delivered. It's really
Yeah,
strange. You know what, Chris? I'm gonna call
it.
that whole scene clunky.
Oh,
The
okay.
whole thing from Zuko at the gate through
Oh no,
Aang leaving.
I like Zuko at the gate
Oh,
though.
hear
I like.
hear me out a little bit. Fire
Okay,
Nation's
all right.
standing outside of your wooden gate. There's gaps in the wooden gate, and they're just standing outside, acting like there's a real strong barrier in between you and them. And they're just like they have a demand, and then Sokka and Katara just walk away back to the tent, like Zuko is just gonna hang out there until somebody, it's that
Oh, that part.
there's a weird pacing to it, and then that line delivery is a little strange, and it's just not the most polished, and I'm gonna call that nitpick territory for sure.
I do understand. There is a sort of like you get the sense that they've been that Zuko and the Fire Nation soldiers have been waiting there for like 30 minutes or so, like just standing there waiting. And then
Yeah,
yeah, it's a little. I did notice that today when I watched it. I was like, how much time is going on
yeah. Let's
between?
just call it
Seems like
weird
they're just
pacing.
waiting. Yeah, and maybe it's just like maybe it's a war maybe it's a wartime etiquette of like I've given you a demand. I'm going to give you some time to meet that demand before I start attacking. Maybe that's the way I would interpret that.
Right, but there was nothing. So I agree with the wartime etiquette, right? But in my head, Sokka would have been like, "Allow me to confer with my fellow tribe," but he just like turns and walks away, and Zuko just like standing outside.
Yeah.
For how long is he gonna? I don't know. But there again, I would consider that pretty minor.
Yeah. Okay. Nit of the pick.
I think so.
Um. Then okay, so then they Aang and him have the fight. They fight it out, and yeah, and then Aang goes with them. Says the weird line, which I think is poorly written and also just slightly poorly performed, but more
Awkwardly
poorly
delivered,
written
yeah.
because there's nothing to support it before that.
Yeah, like what?
Honestly, should have been rewritten. Another pass at that part.
Yeah.
Um, and then Aang it has a really cool conversation with Iroh. It's funny you tell me
Oh
this
yeah, I
is a
love the
clip.
conversation with Iroh.
Yeah. Yeah, great conversation with Iroh. Great stuff there. Just build up that kind of character of Iroh, being like, I'm not too sure about him. He seems kind of cool, but why is he on this side? Um,
I have qualms with some of the dialogue delivery and things like that, but his interaction with Iroh doesn't feel natural, right? It's such an unusual circumstance, but it feels well delivered.
yeah,
One of my favorite scenes of the episode.
yeah. And then he takes the keys and he gets out, and then he escapes, and Zuko and them try to attack. Oh, then Katara. Oh, Aang does help Katara and stuff learn how to be a better waterbender. I really like that. And then she kind of blocks the fire attack with her own water, just kind of instinctively. And then I feel like the episode honestly probably should have ended there.
It's a long episode too.
Yeah,
It's a
which I
full hour
get. Like,
15 or something, hour 10.
yeah, and I think they purposely wanted to make it an hour episode. Just
Mm,
I can see that being Netflix parameters of like, all right, this is the first episode. Like, we're gonna go to premieres and stuff with this episode. You make it an hour. They're like, okay. I mean, and even narrative speaking, I guess I could see why, but it just felt like there's just too much for that
agreed.
episode. So they go to the
Agreed.
Southern Air Temple, and then Aang sees Gyatso's bones and stuff, goes in the Avatar state, blows stuff all over the place, can't control his power and stuff, and then he calms down eventually. Um,
In
and then
putting myself back in the initial state of watching like in your basement for the first time, fun scene to see first live action Avatar state. Very
oh yeah,
exciting, yeah. And you get a sense they do a nice job of like you really do get the sense like that he can't control it. That comes across. They deliver that pretty well, I feel like.
yeah, and then they're kind of like, all right, that's it,
On we go to the next place. Chris,
and that is the episode one.
well summarized. You just cranked an hour and 10 minutes down into about 10 minutes. Nicely done. Let's do our ratings. We'll do audiovisual, and then story, and then memorability. Do you want to take audiovisual first? Do you remember what you put?
Sure, audio visual. Okay, so I feel like I sounded more negative on this episode than I actually am. I
Fair.
really like this first episode.
Hmm?
Audio visual, I give it 8.5 because of a few things, and maybe the first episode's gonna get some of the higher ratings because of this. But costumes look freaking great. Like sometimes I watch the show, and I was like, man, this show looks freaking. The costumes look great. The surroundings look great. Like I think it's a very beautiful show. And then in there with going to the Avatar state, I think it was done really well. I think it was done really well in the sense that they took up this moment to another level compared to the animated version. Like they made it feel more real and stuff. I really like that. But no, it's a really just this was a really beautiful episode. I think the action was pretty fine. Like looking at the audio visual. But I think I was really just floored by so much of the of just the cinematography and everything, and the costume design. Oh, and that first fight with the Earth Kingdom spy soldier,
Hmm?
amazing bending. Like I love, like they bring you in that world right away. Love seeing that. That guy might be one of my favorite Earthbenders. Don't even know the guy's name.
Hmm?
He needs a name, but
Obviously, it's a. Well, I'm gonna have to. I thought I'd come up with something off the cuff like Rozukin, but we're gonna have to think harder about it. He deserves something better.
yeah, and that guy's acting was good too. Like when he was like when like he was befuddled by Sozin's like nonchalantness about it. Really great stuff.
Fire Palace is cool. Also,
Yeah.
Chris, I did a hair lower. I said 7.5, and
Okay.
ditto to everything you said. I will say that as I watched this the second time, I didn't notice as much the first time, and I don't know how to weight that, but I think, uh, but it hit me now, I guess, and it just there's a lot of time spent with a camera on an actor's face, a kind of surprising amount of time, and it's not they're bad actors, like, but they're not the most amazing actors in the world, so it's a weird, and then that makes me like think harder about the dialogue, etc., etc. But I'm gonna say that's a qualm. That's not a nitpick. That's an actual qualm, and it's probably gonna be a recurring theme. But once you
Sorry.
nitpick
Qualm.
qualm, We
Is
could
there
talk
anything
through
between a
better word.
nitpick and a qualm? Is
No, I
there
feel
anything
like
between a nitpick and a qualm?
is there a thing between nitpick and qualm? Maybe there's something
Qualm.
more than a qualm. Maybe there's like nitpick, and then qualm is the middle one, and then after that's like
Oh, there's definitely more than.
fighting words.
Oh yeah, there's definitely something above a qualm.
Yeah, it's like
Nitpick, qualm,
deal breaker.
issue,
Issue. Yeah,
issue
there you
or
go. There you
concern.
go.
Okay, nitpick. I have a nitpick. I have a nitpick. I have a qualm. I have an issue. Okay, nitpick, qualm, issue, and there's something higher than that.
I'm gonna call it
I feel
fighting
like there's
words for now.
a nitpick. I have a nitpick. I have a
I
qualm. I have
take
an issue. I have
I take
a.
serious. What do they call? I take
There's a
serious.
word. Yes, we're on the same word. But we can't think of. There
I
is
take.
nitpick, qualm,
I
issue. This is not bug me.
Yeah, it is. It's gonna bug me. Anyway, this is qualm. This is qualm or above. This is qualm or qualm to issue, and it's recurring. But there's just a lot of time spent on faces. But once you get away from that part, or if you can ignore that part, ditto to everything. The scenery is really great. The cold open is awesome. That's an awesome cold open, and the martial artistry is good. The firebending, I think firebending looks the best of the bending personally throughout the show, and
Yeah.
it shows well here. So 7.5. Let's do narrative next. I'll go first this time, and this
Apprehension,
I take
reservation.
serious.
I take. I know. Oh my gosh. Sorry.
No, it's there somewhere. Chris, before I give my story rating, this feels like a good time to. We talked about it off the show a smidge, and maybe we talked about it after I hit the record button. I can't really remember. Just a reminder that, like, I really am trying to think on a 10-point scale here, and that's important to me. But anyway, I gave the story a 6, and that's
Hey, how can you give the story a 6 though?
I'm giving the story a 6 because there's a multitude of relatively small but frustrating things that do bug me a lot. So even in the cold open, why is he talking to a peasant? Why is he sharing all this information with a peasant at all?
Because he's a villain.
Airbenders have sacred temples that they literally don't let people in. Why is every airbender at this festival on Comet Day? There's a ton of exposition, and it's not that the story is bad, but and I know with first episode, but no, I watched the first episodes of the other show a couple weeks ago, kind of in mental preparation on
Of the cartoon?
a good old fashioned DVD, and just the proportion of this episode that's spent just with talking faces on screen telling me stuff is way worse. It's way worse. And so it's not this horrible story. It is delivered in a way that I do not care for. So, but again, that is a 6 is not to say that it's bad. It just isn't. I don't think it's great. I think it's just fine.
I would say this, and if you go back and listen to our first episode ever, maybe 400 episodes ago,
That's a long time ago. 6 years at least.
maybe 300. I mean, we've averaged one episode a week.
Yeah, give or take 6 times 50.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, somewhere in there. Go back and listen to our first episode, which is probably a shake episode. This episode might be a shake episode too. I don't know. Go listen to it. Maybe listen to it on 1.25 speed because sometimes I talk slow. But
it'll make it sound like the chipmunks are talking about Avatar, and that's hilarious.
In that episode, I say just man, how good the execution of exposition is in that show, in that episode. Yeah. It is like textbook how to do exposition. Like Katara and Katara and Sokka, when they're on that boat, you get so much from them and just their boat ride. You get their character dynamic, you get the world they're in, and it's just them talking so naturally. It's like ever since Dad left, like you think you're doing like, oh, okay, their dad left. He went off to war. And then like Sokka's like, oh, Katara, I was doing this magic stuff, and she's like, well, like this is our culture. So like, okay, Katara is strong-willed, strong-headed, and she really believes in the stuff about waterbending and stuff. Um, and even beyond that, there's other instances where like exposition is done so freaking well. So when you told me that like, oh, you get a story of Sid's, my first reaction was like, well, it's kind of the same story, but you elaborate on that. And yeah, the exposition here isn't as good as.
It's not awful, and we're not trying. I'm trying really hard not to compare 1-to-1, right? Trying really, it just
Yeah.
and that it just
Yeah.
it's fine.
Now it's funny though because the term media literacy. Have you heard that term, Shawn?
Media literacy
Yeah.
sounds like somebody who watches CNN talking to somebody who kind of watches Fox News. Is what media literacy sounds like that would come out.
Well, lately this term has like, I don't know, it's become a new term for people. Pretty much like, all right, how well do people do at comprehending like the actual meaning to stuff?
Oh, I
And
would fail at that. Chris, that's a big
or
difference between you and I. You'd crush it. I'd fail miserably.
well,
I mean,
you're like,
that
well,
as a
media.
compliment too. That is meant to in the highest respect for you and your art.
No, Shawn, you're better. You're not giving yourself no credit. But I think there are sometimes I'll see a critique of something. I'll be like, oh, that person just didn't get what they were going for here. Like, for instance, and I was about to say something about Drake.
Wait,
Yeah,
were we
okay.
recording when we talked about Drake? We weren't
No,
recording, were we?
we were recording. We were talking about.
Tell us your Kendrick Drake thoughts in the comments below. Go ahead.
K. Dot more definitely. Anyway, but there's Drake's last diss was a really weird diss song. So in Kendrick's last diss song, he accused Drake of like being a pedo and so doing weird stuff. Drake has done weird stuff, almost kind of grooming like type of stuff, but it's just can't be like proven. But it's like you're moving kind of weird. But Kendrick has a song on his previous album called like Mother Eye something, and he talks about how growing up someone accused his uncle or accused someone close to him of like sexually assaulting him. He was like, no, like I wasn't, like I'm telling the truth, like I wasn't sexually assaulted and stuff, but no one believed him. But some people didn't believe him because his mother was sexually assaulted and no one believed her. Like also like some people are just quiet about their being sexually assaulted and stuff. But Kendrick really wasn't sexually assaulted. But Drake's rebuttal was like, "Oh, you calling me a pedo because you were sexually assaulted." And then like people are like, "Well, Drake, did you listen to the song? Because in the song he clearly states that he wasn't." Like you don't, and that's the whole media literacy thing. That's what I was trying to bring up. Is that like people don't understand what? Anyway,
I miss
which is funny.
a fair bit of stuff that's not said literally. I can't say I would have missed that because it's pretty literally there, but
It is literally stated throughout the song.
Yeah, can't say I would miss that one, but I miss a lot of things that aren't fairly blatant.
Anyway,
but such is life.
back to my original point about Avatar.
Well, that was a big circle.
Sometimes, and maybe we got to think about the audience here, is that exposition. I'm not saying it was done great here, but sometimes people got to be hit over the head with some things. Mm-hmm. And granted, there's better ways you can do it, like they do it in the original show.
Well, yep. Tough to not compare. You know what? That's something that it does feel like when you hit the cold open of this show, and somebody just gets burnt to a crisp, right? Couple people get burnt to a crisp in the show. Great cold open feels like it's gonna be like an adult, like a PG-13 action. But then when they're delivering the exposition, it feels like they're delivering exposition to a different audience, almost like a different kind age of audience. But I don't know. I'm probably overthinking that too much.
Yeah.
Anyway, Chris, what'd you score? Or I can tell you if you don't remember.
Nope, I got it right here. If I go to another page, besides looking up synonyms for poems and whatnot. Story, I gave it an 8.
Umbrage. I take serious umbrage with that. Professor Umbrage.
Oh, that's what you were thinking?
I was, because
That
Heather and I threw
was-
it, or it started as like a joke, like, oh, I get it, it's a pun with her name, and you take a, but no, that's actually like a
Ah.
word that we use like not terribly seriously now. Sorry, I don't know
That's
why I
fine.
thought of that.
No, that's nitpick,
Clearly
qualms,
not the word you're thinking of.
It was. It's like I take. Oh my gosh! But now let me look. Never mind. I'll
I
look it
take
up later.
offense to that
But
idea.
offense,
Take offense to that idea.
maybe. Okay, maybe. I mean, comically, umbrage works better. But
It is stupidly
but
catchy.
it's almost contradictory. Like it's such a silly
It
word
is.
that. Anyway, story gave him an 8 because I mean because a lot of it is the same story. And I like the original story. I didn't really consider the exposition stuff like that. Things added to the story so far, stuff that haven't really changed. Oh, well, they did take away. Not to compare. I don't want to compare. I'm thinking of something.
It's tough not to, yeah.
I know it's tough. But anyway, gave it an 8.
Hmm?
Memorable. I gave it a 7.5, and I probably could have went a little bit higher with this. But like that first cold open, freaking great. I probably could have went higher just because of that. And that probably would have been the main thing that would have taken this up higher. But I think it's just it's a pretty solid, good first episode. And that,
Yeah.
you want me to go ahead and tell me what it,
No, I'll get my memorable, then we'll
Okay.
do our, yeah. I did a
Alright.
6.5 on memorable, so not too far off. Same things that you said, other than I'll re-point out that this is a long episode. If it
It is
feels
long.
it feels like there's maybe just a hair too much, and it just gets a little watered down, especially after that cold open. It's just like action packed, and you know what? There's a fair bit of just talking.
Well, and then maybe that's why, like, there's the fight with. It's a very short lived fight of Zuko and stuff attacking that.
It is a fight, but it's
and
not.
maybe
It's not much of one.
Yeah.
And you know what?
yeah, and even
When the kids are like throwing stuff, like it's kind of cute and funny, but it's barely a fight.
yeah, and so that's probably why they're like, okay, we need a big, huge action piece. Like when we need to end it on a high note. Like when we premiere this, we need people to review it and be like, oh, that is great. So that's probably why they shifted. That's probably why like episode 3 is in there, because really I think that last 15 minutes could be in the Warriors episode.
But instead, it's a great cap to this episode to see Aang in the Avatar state. We probably didn't give that scene enough credit. It's really neat the first time to see him live action Avatar state in episode 1.
Yeah, it is.
Chris, your average came out to an 8.1. Mine came out to a 6.6. That averages out to a 7.4. I'm gonna say that's not to disparage myself, but listen, if you're looking for like critical thought processes and stuff, and you choose to align more with Chris's ratings than mine, that's fine. I take no offense to that. But anyway, 7.4. Chris, we're gonna add one. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think we're gonna be like one. I just think initially, I just love this show way more than you.
That's fair.
So I think our scores are gonna probably be like more farther apart than compared to our Avatar and Legend of Korra reviews.
I think that our ratings here were reflective of our feelings at first watch. I feel like it tracks pretty well. We are going to add one more thing to our episodes, and you tell me how to describe this better if you need to, is its caliber as an adaptation. So ratings aside, how does it do? So this is the part where, like, if we are going to compare it to the animated series, like, this is the place. Like, does it do a good job of staying true to intent and source material, but telling its own different story? And I'll go first because I have a feeling that you have more intelligent thoughts here. I'll go first and just say, Chris.
Let's also just what's the scale here?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
It's kind of a 3 qualitative scale of just like worse adaptation. average adaptation, meaning that sure this thing probably changed, but it's like same quality. It might be different, but could take it either way.
Or
And
it's
then
or it's
better,
good, but it
meaning
didn't change enough, or whatever, right? The like less value
yeah,
added. Yeah.
yeah. Or better, meaning like, oh yeah, they made the change. They made most changes to this episode, and this is actually better for it. More better than not. So just worse, average, better.
Yeah. I gave this one an average. I will say, if you really twisted my arm, I
Okay.
would say it's closer to good than bad.
Ooh.
So the things I do like about it is that it immediately sets a really good tone of what it's going to do different, and it's like taking
Mhm.
advantage of this medium and doing things with it,
Yeah.
and that's great. That's really great. But I just keep coming back to uh, like a lot of FaceTime does not feel like good adaptation work. Like staring at a lot of faces, saying a lot of expositions. That's not good adaptation work. That's like you didn't. That doesn't add to my experience at all. It's not as good of a viewing experience. So those two things in my mind balance out a little bit. I'm gonna say it's an average adaptation caliber.
Man, I'm probably the same, average to good. That cold open,
God, it's
holy crap!
cool.
I was like, man, such a great cold open.
That's the best
Really
cold open
added
they could
to
have
it.
thrown at us.
Yeah, which is funny because I thought they could have done something going into it. I had a different preconceived notion, and then they did something different. It was better than what I thought in my head.
Hmm.
So that was good. I also like seeing the air nomads and stuff. I thought that was good, a little different change and stuff.
Yeah, a lot
And
of fun.
seeing them being wiped out, that part's not fun. But
Well,
okay, if you
okay,
say
no,
it's fun,
but
sure.
it
I'm
creates an
kidding. I'm not.
engaging.
Yeah,
Talk about an
they're like,
immediate value add for watching
yeah,
this this episode.
mm, yeah. So those were like the. I think those are definitely the better changes. The
Hmm.
thing that is taking it down for me is that Aang didn't run away. Like
That's so
I'm like
pesky.
that is. I'm like, ugh, that is. I have such issues with this part of it. Like
And
it just
and what
it
a
is
time for
just
him to run away during this big festival adds even more weight to it. But the fact
yeah.
that he just went on a walk during this time when all the other
I,
airbenders are like,
like Aang shouldn't blame himself. He shouldn't. He
yeah,
like I just went for a ride just to clear my head, and I was going back home.
somebody told me that I was Jesus, and I decided to try to digest that because I'm, how old is
Yeah,
he? 11? How's that?
12. I'm
12?
sure.
Because I'm 12 and I needed a moment. And that seems like a
Yeah.
pretty responsible thing to do.
Yeah. So I would. The thing is, like, that is so instrumental to the whole entire story of Aang. But like, man, that's not an. It is a umbrage, absolutely an umbrage. Uh,
You're right. That like undermines the magnitude of what we're saying. We'll think of a different word. Oh
Anyway,
shit.
I'm probably in the average. Like this episode was a good average adaptation. So much good stuff, but
Mhm.
yeah, that part just really took it down.
Yep,
And it's
agreed.
so easy to fix. Like
I
why?
know.
Uh,
Chris, that's going to be a
that's-
recurring theme too. Is there's a lot of things that just like a minor. I should preface this. I watched the whole series in the past
a
week.
minor. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That's also a Kendrick thing.
Uh,
He, so in Kendrick's last diss song, which is catchy, he goes like, "Oh, you tried to strike a chord, but it's probably A minor, as in a minor."
that's clever,
Yeah,
Kendrick. That's clever, man. I
yeah.
I will say that there's a lot of things that like I do take very serious, and we'll probably take different caliber. You know, I'm probably umbrage, you'll be qualm, or vice versa. But there are things that if you would have just done it just a little different, if you would have just told it a little
Hmm.
bit differently, it would have gone so long, like so far
Yeah.
to how I accept it. And I think that's typically to me going to be in the bad bucket of adaptation. Like you changed it and good for you, but you kind of missed a core piece or whatever. But hey, average. It's harmless. It's got a lot of strengths. And again, if you had to twist and say no, give it, is it really average? It's a little better than worse.
I think I was thinking of take exception. I take exception.
Take exception. No, that's definitely what we should have gone.
Is it? Okay.
That's more serious than a qualm. You got a nitpick, a qualm, and like, no, I take exception to that's a barrier.
Okay.
I like it. No offense, Professor Umbridge. Chris, this is a long episode. Let's wind down.
It's longer than I thought. It was going fast for a minute, but
it was a long episode. First rating we've done in a while. We had a lot of feelings that will probably be themes that we will not have to explain as fully every time. And that's fine. Anyway, 7.4. That's a solid little pilot for a Netflix live action. My name's Shawn Shaler. That's my friend Chris Ford, aka The Objective Geek of YouTube and Twitter fame. This is Avatar: The Last Podcasters. Give us the likes, the thumbs up, bells. What's up?
Let us know what you guys think. You know, how does this episode feel?
Please, yeah, throw it on a scale of 10, scale of 100. Yeah, we don't care. Just give us your. This is the first time where we're reviewing something. Well, it's not the first time we're reviewing something new, but like we're reviewing something together, like at the same time as other people would be absorbing it for the first time, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, give us your feelings, and then
if you want to be lazy and give us a letter grade. If you don't want to do the math,
that's fine too. Just for the record, I will not be equating. I will not be equating your letter grades to my beautiful numerical system. I'm not going to do it. No, I'm just kidding. Tell us your feelings. And then give us thumbs ups and comments and reviews, click bells, likes, all of the various positive interactions. We appreciate all of it. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you next time. It feels wrong to not do the but it, does it fit here?